Now let's apply a V-Ray material to the sphere. There are a number of ways to apply a V-Ray material to objects, and I'm going to teach you 3 of them today. First, select the object you want to apply the material to. Head over to the V-Ray shelf and click this icon to apply the material. We don't really see any change in the viewport, but down in the command line we see a message that tells us that a new V-Ray material has been assigned to the selected object. With the sphere still selected, go to the attribute editor, navigate to V-Ray material and give it a new name. I'm going to name it Sphere MTL. The second way to create a material is by opening the Hypershade. In the Create tab, simply click on V-Ray MTL and a new V-Ray material shader will be created. We can see this new material in the graph editor. I'm naming it Plain MTL. Now, we don't want to keep minimizing to see our viewport, so we can actually create a viewport panel in our Hypershade window. Go to Window and click on Viewports to bring up the viewport panel. We can dock it right here so it will be more convenient for us. The third way to assign a V-Ray material is by right-clicking and holding on an object, going to Assign V-Ray material and choosing a new material to assign. Let's take a closer look at our Sphere MTL. This icon here is a swatch. Under the swatch properties, you can specify whether you want your swatch to auto-update itself or update only when clicked. I always enable auto-updates, but if you want a slight performance boost, you can disable this option. Under basic parameters, our first property is the diffuse color, which basically means whatever color we want our object to be. So if we change the diffuse color to red, the object becomes red. The next value is amount, which I always keep at 1. You can tweak it if you want for stylistic purposes, but 1 is a more realistic value. I'm also going to make my red a little less saturated. The next value is opacity, which deals with the visibility of your material. Black means totally invisible and white means totally visible. Let's start an IPR to see how this effect will look when rendered. Alright, the red looks nice here. Now let's tweak the opacity effect. The sphere completely vanishes, leaving behind just the shadow. You can disable the shadows cast for the sphere, but at that point it will be no different than hiding the objects. You can also simulate cutouts by attaching a texture to the opacity map. Let's attach this black and white checkered image and see its effects. We see that V-Ray has cut out all the black squares and left all the white ones. This can be a pretty cool effect if you use it right. Okay, let's go back to the Hypershade and get rid of the opacity map. Right-click and select Graph Network. Delete the texture and placement nodes and change the opacity back to white. The next value is the roughness amount, which deals with how the material handles reflections. Is it going to reflect as a rough or smooth material? Generally, larger values give flatter reflections. This value really depends on which material you are trying to emulate. Let's move on to the reflection section. Reflection color specifies how much you want your object to reflect, while reflection glossiness specifies how glossy or shiny you want these reflections to be. Lower values produce matte materials, while higher values produce glossy materials. Again, I normally leave the amount at 1, which is the more realistic value. You can tweak it if you want something more stylized, however. Let's see how the reflection controls affect the material in real time. Alright, we see that the sphere has now started to reflect the environment around it. The more we increase the glossiness, the more distinct those reflections become.